cautiously optimistic and excited.
A mystery press conference hastily called. Leo Varadkar strode out and didn't disappoint.
I am resigning as President and Leader of Fine Gael effective today.
The people here sometimes feel they're somewhat neglected by the Irish government, to the extent that this place is sometimes known as the Forgotten County.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks, but none have ever been found.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach.
This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Sky News, get the full story first.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the President as he approaches his golf club.
4 more years!
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
You're watching Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. But first, our top stories. Sir Keir Starmer has welcomed Volodymyr Zelensky to the UK with a hug ahead of a crucial summit with European leaders tomorrow. Vatican sources have said the Pope is breathing more easily and his condition is stable, but his doctors remain cautious. Charlie XCX has won Best Song at this year's Brit Awards. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with columnist for The Independent, James Rampton, and broadcaster and psychotherapist, Lucy Beresford. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, royal welcome for Zelensky after White House meltdown, writes The Observer. The Telegraph pictures both Sir Keir Starmer and President Zelensky and has the headline, "You are welcome to number 10." "We've got your back" is the Sunday Mirror's headline. The Mail hits out at President Trump saying, "Now stop the state visit for bully Trump." The Sunday Times says the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, unlocks billions for Kyiv and UK defence. The Sunday People also has the meeting between Sir Keir Starmer and Zelensky at number 10. And they're off to Benidorm is the Stars Splash. That's in reference to Brits flocking to the Spanish hotspot for the Cheltenham Festival. Intriguing, huh? We're joined tonight by economist for The Independent, James Rampton, and broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Welcome to you both. Let's start with the only story in town and Zelensky on British soil. The Mirror has that photo of the hug that Sir Keir Starmer extended to the President of Ukraine, in stark contrast to his reception and the basic ejection from the White House when he went to meet Donald Trump.
Yes, despite what the Star would have us believe, this is the only story in town. I must say I'm quite proud to be British tonight, and the contrast, as you rightly point out, between the reception he received in Downing Street and the vile treatment he received at the hands of Trump and Vance on Friday, which just infuriated me. It was so despicable the way they treated him. I think these are lovely headlines, actually. We've got your back, says the Mirror, and Hug of Hope says the People. You know, the British people in polls recently have wholeheartedly backed our support of Zelensky. You could see big crowds outside Number 10 cheering him as he went in today. And I think that's right. He's fighting against a tyrant. Unlike what President Trump said, he didn't start the war. He's not a dictator. Trump just doesn't get it. He thinks people who die in wars are losers. He's got no idea of the sacrifices that Zelensky and his people have made. But we seem to understand that, and that's reflected in the very warm hug between them and the fact that Starmer has offered to give him wholehearted backing and more money, which we'll talk about later. As I say, I'm proud to be British tonight.
And it was emphatic, wasn't it, the fact that Sir Keir Starmer actually walked out of Downing Street, walked a little way down to actually greet him.
It's a very proactive hug. And, you know, a picture tells 1,000 words. It's not even just the hug.
No, we're seeing
it's
it
the
there.
context of it as coming within 24 hours of what happened in the White House, that there is this sense that Starmer and Britain in general are making a decision as to which side we're on, because Trump himself has obviously made a decision that he's not on Zelensky and Ukraine's side, he's on Russia's side. So it's a
Well, he's actually said that he's in the middle, he's not on either side.
Well, that's completely rubbish. That is not what happened. That's not what happened in the White House. That was a very, very uneven-handed ambush of Zelensky. And in a way, people have been talking about Starmer meeting Trump a couple of days before and how very civilised it was and how very measured, and it didn't seem to, you know, escalate into anything, and that was thought a very good thing. This is a very powerful shift. Starmer is actually making a very distinctive gesture here. He's not just making this gesture for Vladimir Zelensky, he's also making this gesture for Donald Trump. Donald Trump will have seen this, and we're going to come on to the story about the meeting with the King. Donald Trump will be fully aware that what he thought was this amazing opportunity to be given a second invitation to meet the King, that's also going to be bestowed on Vladimir Zelensky tomorrow as well.
Although it's not going to be a state visit. James, do you think that Donald Trump will be angered by that Zelensky will have an audience with the King tomorrow?
Yes, given that he's got an ego the size of Texas, he'll be furious that Zelensky is getting to meet the King. You're right, it's not a state visit, but it's very pointed, the fact that one of the first things that Zelensky said when he was in Number 10 is, I'm very honoured to accept the invitation to meet the King tomorrow, and therefore trumps Trump, in that he will meet him probably months before Trump comes over here. And given that Trump is so fawning towards the royal family, and he's also desperate to win a Nobel Peace Prize, which to me is completely bizarre. He's going around a very strange way if that's what he wants to do. But he will be probably infuriated by these images because he's a narcissist. But if he and Vance are so determined to put America first, Vance said in 2022, I don't care about Ukraine. He voted against the Senate's $61 billion package of support for Ukraine last year. They don't give a stuff about Europe, apparently. And so this will infuriate Trump because it seems that Starmer is stealing the limelight, and what Trump hates, he's getting the attention that Trump isn't. And he's getting praise, which Trump isn't, certainly on this side of the Atlantic.
Lucy, I want to come back to your thoughts on the meeting with the King, but something you said earlier, that Zelensky walked into an ambush. Is that what you believe happened, that it was pre-planned?
The meeting lasted for a very long time, and it seemed quite civil for the majority of it. But there were a couple of really weird things. One was a member of the press pack who asked why Zelensky wasn't in a suit, and that felt like something that the whole room was tittering about. And I did get the impression that J.D. Vance was the person who upped the ante, and I don't think he would have done that unless he'd talked to Trump in advance. And we already know that whatever Trump says about being a mediator, people often talk about, oh, I hate being in the middle because I'm always having to, you know, sort family disputes out. But people in the middle love being in the middle because it gives them power. And I think J.D. Vance knew exactly what he was doing. He'd probably talked about it with Donald Trump before, and then they just literally upped the ante. It was a 2-on-1 pylon, and it was really unpleasant to watch. And from a clinical perspective, it looked very abusive. There was a little bit of gaslighting, there was contempt, there was a lot of derision, there was just everything that made you feel uncomfortable. And it made me feel uncomfortable about what's happening right now. But then I think, OK, well, at some point, the Ukraine war is going to end. What is America's position going to be then? They're pivoting themselves to Russia. And I don't think those of us old enough to remember Reagan and Thatcher could ever have imagined that that is the direction that America would go.
But looking at the, well, it turned into a news conference that was on camera, and J.D. Vance sort of berated Zelensky for the fact that he was litigating in front of the international media.
But even the body language at that moment,
but
when
he was
says,
invited,
with respect...
They put the cameras there.
Absolutely. And anybody who starts a sentence with respect, you know they're going to say something pretty disrespectful, which he then goes on to say. And the body language was very much, I'm talking now, you know, I've got the karaoke mic. So it was very,
and there
very
was one
controlling.
point where Donald Trump actually physically sort of pushed Zelensky.
And he said, you've talked enough. Going back to your point, I absolutely agree that it was an ambush. I think it was premeditated. The thing about the suit infuriated me because Elon Musk wanders around in a MAGA cap and a T-shirt, and he's praised for being informal. Zelensky is wearing this military outfit as a statement. He says he's not going to wear a suit until the war is over. This is a statement of solidarity with his troops who are dying in their thousands. Another thing that Trump doesn't get. Remember, J.D. Vance is running for the presidency in 2028, and it starts here. He's already putting out this, to me, reprehensible America First propaganda, and the way in which he triggered Trump by, first of all, saying that Zelensky was disrespectful in an extremely bullying manner, I agree, and then saying he was ungrateful. Those are the moments where Trump erupted, and it was almost like one paper called him a tech bro Iago this morning. I just thought that was a fantastic phrase, because he was like needling Trump like Iago needles Othello to make him explode. And that plays into Vance's highly right-wing, extremely xenophobic worldview.
But also
America's all that matters.
What is also very worrying is how many grudges they had. So they were complaining about the fact that they'd spent all this money. They gave an incorrect figure. They were talking about the fact that Zelensky had, perhaps ill-advisedly, gone to Pennsylvania to campaign for Kamala Harris. And they also complained about, and I think this goes to the heart of Trump's difficulty with Zelensky, is that he complained about the fact that Zelensky hadn't helped him when he wanted to find out what was on Hunter Biden's laptop all those years ago in the first presidential. So these are guys who've got grudges forever, but they're also incredibly thin-skinned. They wanted the gratitude, which, to be fair, is what Macron was able to deliver last Monday, which was what Starmer delivered on Thursday. Certainly diplomatically, perhaps Zelensky didn't play all the cards in his favour. In fact, he clearly didn't. But nevertheless, if you are saying, you know, I am the king, I'm Don Corleone at the moment, and you need to kind of bow down to me, you don't get given respect, you earn it. And Donald Trump hasn't done that.
What was also disgusting to me was that Vance was just repeating lies that are promulgated by Russian bot farms. For instance, you're right about the money. America has given, very generously, £120 billion to Ukraine, not £350 billion, which was the figure that Trump used. It's also a complete lie that Ukraine is kidnapping people on the street and forcing them to be conscripted. It's a complete lie that Zelensky's been ordering propaganda tours for Western leaders to show the Russian devastation. Those are all lies that immediately originate from the Kremlin.
The main problem with this is that we're talking about that 40-minute meeting, whereas what we should be talking about is the fact that there is really only one person who has banged heads together and said this war has been going on for 3 years, it's been costing far too many lives and far too much money, and that is Donald Trump. Now, you might disagree with all of his technique, but he is at least the person saying, right, you know, game changer, I'm in town, could we please do something? And Europe really needs to pay attention here, because it's our time now to step up and kind of get our act together.
Yeah. Lucy and James, thank you very much for the moment. We're going to take a break now, and coming up, the Sunday Times reports that WH Smith looks set to disappear from town centres as the company plans to sell its high street arm. Stay with us for more.
Times every day for the next 3 months.
Why have we agreed to this?
Raises many questions about many things.
Actually seeing people impacted, she was so upset.
It was powerful. They kind of couldn't believe they were being berated here.
Very much on my terms, I think was the subtext. News happens fast around Donald Trump.
It was a kind of wow moment.
Yeah, that's what it feels like, doesn't it?
It's Trump world, and we just live in it.
So, where next?
Follow Trump 100 wherever you get your podcasts. I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Do you fear a fourth indictment? Does your government owe an apology to the British home children?
Great to see you.
Does your government owe them an apology? The fact that they were intercepted, does that indicate a military weakness on the part of Iran? No. Free, wherever you get your news. There's no doubting the strength of this hurricane as it roars through. You can feel a devastating power. It had been a difficult night in a deadly storm.
Bang, bang. You can hear it hitting the windows.
Our houses are okay.
It's depressing.
As bad as all of this is, it could have been much worse. Today, this land they call sacred is at the heart of America's electric car revolution.
To me, it's a sacred ground.
The white gold rush is a race that Biden doesn't want to lose. I've covered some of the biggest stories in the world. Donald Trump, 45th President of the United States, it would appear is about to learn his fate.
Escort coming out!
San Quentin houses America's largest death row. They rarely allow cameras onto the condemned block.
James Matthews, Sky News. I want to be treated equally like everyone else. It's one step closer to getting out, to getting off death row.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
Are you finished by claims that you're a racist?
Question?
Mr. Musk, has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives? Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding. What do you call him, sir?
He's from Sky News. He's entitled to ask me questions.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Is this now all your territory?
Yeah. The battlefield is outside the barricades. We are in the middle of a forest, in a jungle really, and they're attempting to keep these men alive. I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent.
It's really dangerous. Many people have died riding it.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club.
4 more years!
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone, and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, columnist for The Independent, James Rampton, and broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Let's take a look at the Telegraph again, but this time the story towards the bottom of the paper regarding US commitment to Europe. And Kemi Badenoch is saying that it can't be taken for granted, James.
Yes, and I imagine she wrote this with gritted teeth. She says, credit where credit is due, and even if you don't support the Labour Party, I think you must pay credit to Starmer. He's been so steadfast in his report. But she rightly says, you know, that we are now going to have to play a leading role as the transatlantic alliance that's gone on since the end of the Second World War seems to be collapsing before our very eyes. It's down to us and the French, as the two most powerful military nations on this side of the Atlantic, to take control of this, because otherwise, you know, the prospect of Russia reneging on a ceasefire and then thinking, the Baltics look quite tempting, NATO members, EU members, that is just too horrific to contemplate. So I agree, and I never thought I'd say this either, I agree with Kemi Badenoch. We do have to take a leading role because the Americans have proved so incredibly selfish and narrow-minded about it. So I think it's right.
That's
completely,
the scary thing.
You can't trust their word. We talk about Putin being untrustworthy, but what about Trump?
And she says that we have honest differences with the Trump administration, which must be resolved, because there can be no doubt that we're living through the most dangerous times we have seen since the worst moments of the Cold War.
Well, this is really interesting that it's on the front page of the Telegraph, because what people have been saying in the past 24 hours is, so what is Nigel Farage saying? Why hasn't Nigel tweeted? And why, you know, the people who you think would be very closely aligned with Trump haven't said anything at all. So here we have, smack on the front page of the Sunday Telegraph, Kemi channeling me a few minutes ago, where I said that, yes, Europe are going to have to really get their act together. And as
She
I
knew you were
say,
gonna say
I
that.
think that's right. I think, well, she and I were very similar. I think that the problem is that we've got a really difficult crisis right now. When that's all done, as I said before, when the Ukraine war is over, where does that leave America? America will have pivoted to America. America will have pivoted to Russia, partly possibly to maybe cleave some, you know, space between Russia and China. I don't know. It's obviously part of Donald Trump's sort of geopolitical cat's cradle that he has going on in his mind. But the idea that we as allies of America, that we share a lot of intelligence with America, for example, are we actually going to want to have that level of special relationship again if this is how he treats his allies? You know, he may very well have said that he didn't bully Zelensky, but he was the one who called him a dictator. And then when he was challenged about that in Starmer's press conference, he says, did I say that?
Yeah.
I don't think I
Next
ever
question.
said that. So it's just literally, I think he's been reading Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. He is just in the now, in the moment, which is why, funny enough, I don't think it was pre-planned, but I do think the ambush was very much because J.D. Vance knows.
It was planned by
how to
Vance,
yes,
who is a real snake in the grass, I think, and was ready to pounce. And he knew what would trigger Trump. That was the thing.
So basically, we've got this Lancaster House event tomorrow. We've got all the heads of Europe coming, or the majority of them, and Canada, and Turkey, and they're all going to have to sing from the same song sheet. But the interesting thing is, people often used to say about Europe, you know, America would say, "Who do I phone?" Who is going to be the person who acts as the bridge? We know that Keir Starmer is hoping to present himself as that person, but you can imagine Emmanuel Macron thinking, no, that role should be me. I got to touch Trump on the knee. It should be me.
Well, I'm
But
also still in the EU,
I
you
think
might
Trump
say.
was mightily impressed by the invitation from the King. Just to say, Nigel Farage has tweeted about what transpired in the White House. Yes, he said the spat in the White House last night is regrettable and will make Putin feel like the winner. But this is not the end of the story, far from it. A peace deal is essential and Ukraine needs the right security guarantees. So he has commented on that.
That's very true.
Is this the same Nigel Farage who in 2014 said Putin was the world leader that he most admired?
And also that he's
got a real Achilles heel there, I think.
Speed dial. You know, this is somebody who could actually have come. I think my point is, yes, I mean, I think you can't call it a spat. It was a diplomatic earthquake. But Kemi Badenoch is on the front page of the Sunday Telegraph, and that's my point, is that that's a much more a committed statement of intent than just sending out a tweet.
To the Mirror, photo, top right of the paper, Ghislaine Maxwell to ask pal Trump for a pardon. The full story inside, which you've had sight of, James. Tell us about this story.
Well, I know many, many libel lawyers will be watching, so I'm going to approach this story carefully, but it's slightly speculative, the Mirror story. It is interesting. According to a friend of Maxwell's in prison, there have been discussions amongst her and her friends about whether she should call on Trump, who was a friend of hers and of Epstein's, her former boyfriend, and, convicted child abuser, to ask for a pardon. And that, to me, I suppose, as we were just saying, nothing about Trump should surprise us. He freed every single person who committed crimes on the 6th of January, many of whom committed heinous acts of violence against police officers and law enforcement people. So if Ghislaine says, I'm your buddy, I wouldn't be at all surprised if he pardons her. I think it would be a disgrace and a travesty of justice, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Speculative stories.
Totally,
This is not fact.
Hello, libel lawyers, yes.
Yeah, we've only got about 20 seconds, Lucy, just to talk about W.H. Smith vanishing from the high street, from Towns.
Yeah, no, this is really sad. It's just somehow because it feels like an iconic brand from my childhood. In fact, I found £4 on the floor of Bognor Regis W.H. Smith when I was 9 years old, and I was allowed to keep it by the store manager. So it always has a special place in my heart. And I will be very disappointed to see it go the way of Woolworths and BHS.
And James, thank you very much. We'll see you in the 11 o'clock hour. Coming up next on Sky News at 11, we stand with Ukraine for as long as it may take. The Prime Minister's message.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.